Well, welcome to 303 Garage Talks, sponsored this week by Buddy Insurance. They have a product that's really cool. Maybe we can talk about it a little bit.
Yeah.
But it's an on-demand health insurance. Essentially, it kind of fills in the gaps for high deductible health plans. So they do have a change to announce coming up where it used to be somewhat event oriented. Now you can, if you and I are out riding our bikes and we're feeling a little unsafe today, we can just basically push the button, and next thing you know, we have insurance just in case. So
yeah,
it's
a good niche product. Yeah.
But I'm here with Pete. I'm going to miss you. Piccolo or Piccolo? It's not Piccolo. It's
Piccolo.
I got it right the first time.
Yeah.
All right. I had a soccer buddy that was Piccolo because there's a Piccolo's in Nevada here. So I apologize. But he's the head of Bicycle Colorado, and we just wanted to catch up with you and get to know you a little bit better as a person, but also understand.
Oh, no.
So,
you didn't tell me that.
I know. But I wanted to I also wanted to let people know what you guys do, because I don't think everybody really truly understands the role that Bicycle Colorado plays. And before we started this recording, you were talking with our previous guest, and you know, I didn't know some of those things, right? And where you guys fit into the framework of helping organizations, helping events, and not just advocacy. I think of you as kind of an advocacy, but you really do a lot of dynamic things. Yeah. And you've been at the helm for a couple of years now, right?
Just over 2 years, going to 2.5. Yeah.
Tell me your biggest lesson you've learned already. Or maybe what's been so surprising.
You're gonna pull it out. Well, it's the lesson that I shared with you before we just went on air. And I don't say this often because I'm a little embarrassed by it given what I do today. But I've been probably like you, been riding bikes my whole life, and for 20 years in Colorado. And I have to be honest with you, I was a inconsistent supporter of bicycle advocacy. If the envelope showed up at the right time,
when you were paying the bills.
Yeah, I'm like, I'll write a check to IMBA or Bicycle Colorado, or I'd go to Velo Swap and I'd see the team there, and I'd want the sticker, and here's a check. But it didn't really hit me until I joined Bicycle Colorado that almost every place that we have to ride, whether it's a 3-foot shoulder, certainly a protected bike lane, a multi-use path, a trail, that doesn't happen. It just doesn't fall out of the sky. Right. I can promise you that in almost every case, an advocate, an advocacy organization, whether it's Bicycle Colorado or someone working at the grassroots level, made that happen. The world is just not, unfortunately, it's just not set up in a way where when a Department of Transportation lays pavement, they're going to think, okay, we need to improve this road in a way that makes it safe for bicyclists and pedestrians. Their policies and guidebooks, the way they think and act, it just doesn't happen like that.
And it's political too.
It's highly political.
Right.
I mean, it's highly political in part because there are limited resources, right? We're trying to fund not just a highway system, but schools and public health and public security. And it does cost money even to put a 3-foot shoulder in. And so, the lesson is that the bicycling community needs a strong voice to make sure that we have places to ride, right? And it's becoming even more important because you have more people moving to the state, right? We have 5.6 million now, projected to have 8.5 million in the next 3 decades. And there's going to be pressure to build more roads, and we can talk about that if you want. But we're going to need safe places to ride, right? We're going to need safe places to ride, and we're going to need, at least for now, we're going to need people to advocate for that to happen.
I mean, we can go a million directions. I mean, I am curious.
Is it okay if I drink beer?
Absolutely. I was going to say, it's on 4 o'clock. Our quarantine rule is beer and the garage talks.
There we go.
We should say afternoon as a policy. What do you think, Kenny? Maybe noon? Okay. Kenny's behind the camera there, so he's my right-hand man on this. Well, gosh, I have a million questions. So I'm part of Bike Jeff.
Fire away.
So I know a little bit about advocacy and how it can be a roots up sort of thing, or it can be a top-down sort of thing. Where's Bicycle Colorado in the framework of advocacy when you have local people like Bike Jeffco, Kamba on the mountain bike side? Where does Bike Jeffco fit in that frame? Where does Bicycle Colorado fit?
Yeah, it's a good question. So, first of all, this is an all hands on deck effort. To get more people riding bikes more often, there are a number of things that need to happen. Advocacy being one of them. You need advocacy at the federal level where you have the IMBAs, the People for Bikes, the League. You need advocacy at the state level, and then you need advocacy at the local level. There's 64 counties in Colorado, and ideally you'd have advocates in all those counties working with mayors, city managers, city council to make work happen. And so Bicycle Colorado, first and foremost, plays at the state level. So we're the voice of the bicycling community at the state capitol, with CDOT, with the Department of Natural Resources, which CPW rolls up to, Department of Revenue, which the DMV rolls up to. And then we are also the advocacy group in Denver through the Denver Streets Partnership. But beyond that, it's our responsibility. I think it's our responsibility. And what we try to do is to strengthen the local advocates and local advocacy groups like Bike Jeffco. So we work really closely with them. I attend those meetings from time to time. We share tips and tricks to help Bike Jeffco engage at the local level. They'll engage with us at the state level. They've often testified at the Capitol to get legislation through. And so that partnership between local, state, and federal is essential. Again, you need to play at all three levels.
So let's back up just a little bit. I want to talk about what's happened in the last, say, 6 weeks with the COVID and some of the yeah, I know, right?
What happened?
It's been a bit different, right? But no, I want to hear about that and what your role is and some of the things that have happened with that. But let's back up a little bit more than that. Let's say that you are considering a new job and you became aware of this opportunity with Bicycle Colorado. Tell me what intrigued you about taking this job, and tell me what your vision is and maybe how you've already started to change the dynamic at Bicycle Colorado, if you have, and where is it going?
Well, I'll speak to what the vision is as opposed to maybe what it was and how it's changed. But, I took the role because, like you and many of your viewers, I love bikes. It's a cornerstone of my lifestyle, my family's lifestyle, for recreation, to stay healthy, and to get around town as much as I can. I drove here today. I was going to ride, but getting under I-70, I wasn't quite sure how that was going to happen. I was a little short on time. So, I love bikes, and while my support of advocacy organizations has been sporadic over my life, I was aware enough of the conditions playing out for bicycling, and I was feeling increasingly less safe when riding on the road, and I'd been hit by a car. And I think, the bicycle is an underappreciated tool that can address so many of our societal ills, from climate to health and wellness to congestion. I mean, the list goes on. So that's why I took the role. In terms of the direction we're going, I mean, there's a lot to talk about here, but I'll keep it brief, and you can drill down.
No, that's cool.
You can drill down if you want to drill down.
Right.
So first, I do want to underscore what I just said, which is we do have a responsibility to make all of the local advocates, the Bike Jeffcos, Fort Collins, up in Boulder, Grand Junction, there are numerous advocacy groups, both road and mountain. We have an opportunity and a responsibility to make them stronger. So we're going to try to approach that in a more thoughtful, strategic way. I think we've always been there, and people will call and be like, "Hey, we have this issue. Can you help us out?" Like, of course, but how do we do it in a proactive way to build, again, strong, sustainable advocacy groups? So beyond that, what we're really focusing on are three main bodies of work. One is just creating safe places to ride, and that happens through getting money to build the infrastructure, whether it's pavement or dirt, and making sure that the policies are in place so that when money is spent, that the infrastructure being built is high quality. I also put in that bucket laws, so things like 3 foot to pass, reducing speed limits. So Boulder, I don't know if you know this, but Boulder yesterday passed reducing speed limits on residential streets from 25 to 20 miles an hour.
No, I didn't see that.
Yeah, and so, to put that in perspective, the impact for us, people who ride bikes, if you're hit by a vehicle going 20 miles an hour, it's a 13% chance you're not going to make it. If you're hit by a vehicle going 30 miles an hour, there is a 40% chance you're not going to make it. If you're hit by a vehicle going 40 miles an hour, it's a 73% chance you're going to die. And so if you think about your residential streets, and 75% of the streets in Denver are residential, You have people walking, biking, kids playing. The need to go 30. So if you're posting 30, people tend to push it, right? So anyways, I digress a little bit. But
that's a big deal.
we've got to have the laws that encourage the behavior that promotes safety over speed sometimes. And that punishes bad behavior when you're behind the wheel or even on a bike. So that's the first bucket. So you can build great places to ride and have laws, but then there's education. And this isn't just learning to ride a bike or learning to commute to work in traffic. It's also learning to drive and share the road with other users, pedestrians and bicyclists. And it's not just offering classes, in a garage or classroom or online. It's infusing this knowledge into state policy. So if you think about all the driver training and all the driver testing, this is where our relationship with the Department of Vehicles comes in. We need more content in driver training. We need more questions related to vulnerable road users like bicyclists in the testing, and we need more testing. That's the second bucket. And then the third bucket is around communications. Like, how do we, I think, our challenge here is we tend to be preaching to the choir sometimes, I feel. Like, we have our followers and a lot of supporters, and they all love bikes, and so, rah, rah. How do we get outside of that and engage in a dialogue with people who may not ride bikes and whose view of our transportation system is different than our view, where roads are multi-use, right? Not just for a vehicle. And the goal is not to get from A to B as fast as possible in a car, but it's other things, right? And so shaping public perception around bicycling, the benefits of bicycling, what it means to be a bicyclist, that it's not a guy that looks like you and me in Lycra with mirrored shades on a bike, on a fancy bike. Anyone can ride a bike, right? And so we want to find a way to lean into that dialogue, shape the dialogue, shape public perception.
Well, let's talk to the viewers, hopefully, who see this, who are maybe a bit new to cycling because of the COVID. You've been on the bike trails. I've been on the bike trails. You've seen what clearly seems to be a lot of newer people either bringing out the old
great.
bikes.
Yeah, it's awesome.
It's awesome, right?
Overall.
So maybe tell them how you affect their life that maybe they didn't know.
Yeah, I mean,
why should they care? In other words, what is their?
Well, I mean, some of it is just what I mentioned. So a lot of these people that are rediscovering their love of the bicycle, that are going into their garage and dusting off the bike that they maybe haven't ridden in a year or more. They're the riders that are not going to be riding with traffic or even on a shoulder near cars. They're going to the parks and they're going to the bike paths. So again, those places to ride just didn't fall out of the sky, right? So organizations like Bicycle Colorado did the studies, the feasibility studies, secured the funding, and made sure that infrastructure was built in a way that was user friendly. And then, we do some work on the side of getting bikes in the hands of people. And so, there's a big segment of the population today, such as those who ride public transit, who unfortunately may not have an option other than take a bus or train, who would like to ride a bike. We'll get bikes in the hands of those people, right? So anyways, it's, I think for the newbies, it's creating those places to ride and ride safely and feel good about the ride.
I mean, and I think we talked to Sean Farrell last week, who's the race director of BRAC. And one of the things we talked about was trying to bring more unification to all cyclists, because gravel, which has come on pretty strong in the last couple of years, in my opinion, is starting to unravel that we're not just a mountain biker or we're not just a road biker, we're a biker. And the gravel has become this sort of weird limbo gray area that connects us in different ways and new ways, connects towns. Like, you were mentioning to me earlier how a friend rode from here to a Marble almost all on dirt, right?
That's
and
crazy.
I'm like, how did he do that? But where do you see Bicycle Colorado fitting in those roles when you start talking about not just roads, but infrastructure to connect communities that might be dirt, might be trails, it might be not, and I'm not talking about hardcore mountain biking, but just transportation throughout all systems.
And the role we play in connecting communities.
Yeah, and making sure that again, access, safety, and bringing all of those cyclists into the family, so to speak.
Well, I think you've hit on a couple things. Like first, it's unpacking what it means to be a bicyclist, and you and I can talk with an open mind and say, it's anyone on two wheels. And that includes, here's the spectrum. There are people who ride a bike because they don't have a choice. Like that's their only means of transportation. So you'll have homeless people or people who just can't afford a car and they're going to ride it to the work site and they don't have a choice. And the other end of the spectrum, you have people like you and me with how many? 4 bikes.
Well, there's one inside too.
Oh, more inside. Right. So we have multiple bikes and we're wearing Lycra and so there's this full beautiful spectrum of people who ride different types of bikes for different reasons on different surfaces, right? And so for us, we want to create a place, we want to pitch a large enough tent where people can be part of this movement, of this community, because we do have a lot of things in common, whether it's the middle-aged guy in Lycra on a fancy bike or someone riding to their job on a bike because they have to. We all want like safe places to ride. We all want riding to be accessible, right? We want it to be a pleasant experience, right? And we want our bikes to work and so forth. But beyond that, coming back to the infrastructure and this connecting communities, a shoulder to nowhere, a bike lane to nowhere, the value is limited, right? And so, we have supported projects over the years to get some bike infrastructure in, and the A to B is kind of like, well, we need it to go not from A to B, but over to C to D to connect to the urban core or to this community. And so, what we're looking at now and what we encourage is to build complete networks, right? And so it's not, again, just getting some bike infrastructure down, like, just a trail. Like on the dirt space, like a lot of the valuable opportunities now, the compelling opportunities is connecting networks, right? Like you're out riding, you're like, God, if I could just have a mile of trail to go over there, it opens up another, 10, 20, 30 miles of trail. So similar for transportation. Like we need to build places to ride, no different than building roads. Like you're going to build a road to nowhere. Like what good does that do, right?
Right.
So look comprehensively at the transportation system and the network and ensure that we're building networks. The challenge with that, here you brought up politics. So let's just take a hypothetical city with city council, and they got, I don't know, in this hypothetical city, 8 city council members in 8 geographic regions. And the mayor is going to decide to invest money in bike infrastructure. If I'm the city council person and I'm going to do my job and show them adding value to my voters, like I'm going to fight for that money, and so you end up sprinkling the money around. Like, we'll put a bike lane there. We'll put a bike. What may be better is let's consolidate the money that we have, put it in one community, and let's build out a complete network so that people can actually ride to jobs, ride to schools, ride to grocery stores, ride to the town next door, right? So that's what we're looking at. Complete networks, whether it's dirt, pavement, is important.
So I'm kind of curious about you personally. And maybe I want to talk about your staff too in a second. And
I'll talk about them. I'd rather talk about them than me.
I just want to know. I am curious, like how this fuels you personally, and what is the hardest part of your job?
Hardest part of my job. God, I'm lucky. I mean, I love my job. I think the hardest part of my job for me is the pace of change.
Is it glacial?
To me it is. To others it's fast, right? Okay. So as an example, in Denver, the mayor's committed to 125 miles of bike infrastructure by 2024.
Okay.
Like, we could build out the whole city by 2024, right?
Right.
We're talking with some local advocates about I-36 from Boulder to Lyons, popular route.
Yeah.
Right, along the Front Range. So that's becoming more and more congested with cars and bikes. As more people move here, could we put a path? Secure money for a study, complete the study. I mean, it's like the life line for these things is forever, right? Working with state governments is just not as fast as I would like, right? And so I see, the value of bicycling is so tremendous, and the need is so great as more and more people move here to accelerate the pace of change. I'm just always looking for ways to be bolder and to do more quicker, and challenging my teammates, and they challenge me, and to challenge our stakeholders that we work with to like be bold. Like we gotta move faster. I feel like we're on borrowed time, right? I mean, if we don't accelerate the pace of change, if you've been to LA, or any of your viewers been to LA, like on the 405, is it 405?
There's a 405.
405. Like any hour of the day, it's bumper to bumper, right? And people complain about traffic now, comparatively speaking, compared to LA or New York. I mean, that is going to be us someday, unless we get our shit together, right? And accelerate the pace of change. So what's just frustrating is that.
What were you doing before?
I did a bunch of stuff. I started as a banker.
Okay.
And my previous role was in public education, did some nonprofit stuff. But I've had this entrepreneurial thread and have been able to make decisions and get stuff done pretty quickly, and have gotten feedback pretty quickly, whether it's worked or not worked, right? And so for this, I'm like, we need to get going, right? We need to get going. Enough. Anyways, and then you had another part of that question.
Well, just and just how do you I guess I don't remember the other part exactly, but taking that patience a little bit and taking that I gotta let the process work a little bit. How do you motivate your staff, and how do you keep them on task? And talk about your staff and what some of them do. Like you have how many people work at Bicycle Colorado?
15 full time, and that includes the Denver Streets Partnership, the Denver work.
Okay, and talk about some of the roles and what their daily lives are like.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I'm lucky to have the teammates that I have. Hopefully I make them better. They certainly make me better, and they don't need a lot of motivation. I mean, we show up every day, now virtually, because we believe so deeply in the cause. We believe so deeply in the vision and mission. We know the benefit that a bike-friendly world can bring. And I think they share the sense, I know they share the same sense of urgency that I just shared with you, and they want to see more happen sooner. The roles, not to get too much detail, align with kind of the work that I described. So we have policy and advocacy, and that's covering everything at the state level, the Denver level, and then supporting local advocacy groups. And so this is getting the funding, passing the laws, making sure that policies are in place, funding is spent well. And we have an education team, and that's everything from learn to ride to confident commuting, to get people out of their cars and biking to work or grocery store. And then Bicycle Friendly Driver is been a really popular program for us, intended for anyone who is out on the road, whether you're behind handlebars or behind a wheel. And then I spoke about shaping public perception. I mean, it's really important to communicate not just to the people who support us with their time and money, the broader bicycling community, and then to all residents of Colorado about our work. And so we have a small communications team that performs that role, and then some back office stuff. We're a member-driven organization. We wouldn't be able to do the work we do without our members, and it's not just the money that they provide us, but it's their time, it's their voice at the Capitol. I mean, laws get passed not because of my rhetorical skills, my ability, they're not, or my policy team, our policy director who's amazing. Laws get passed because we have 10,000 members, and they call and they write and they show up and they vote, right? And elected officials know that, right? And they care about that. They truly do care.
Well, let's expand on that a little bit and talk about COVID and how you were pretty influential in helping bike shops get on that list of essential businesses, and that spoke to the membership level and the people who care. Talk about what you've been doing through this whole process.
Yeah. It's been a crazy couple of weeks. The work has certainly not slowed because of COVID. So this is another example where things just don't happen without advocacy. I mean, it's easy to say that the mayors, because it came out at the local level first before the governor announced his stay-at-home order. There were eight counties that issued stay-at-home orders prior to Governor Polis. And, it's easy to say, well, it would just been in there. But no, I mean, that's not the case. So, in fact, the first two counties, San Miguel and Pitkin County, did not have bike shops as an essential service. And then subsequent counties did. And it was critical that when the governor issued his order, he saw that particularly the larger counties like Denver and Douglas County, Jeffco County, had bicycling as a permitted activity, which wasn't a given, and is still being debated, by the way, and we could talk about that due to crowding.
Right.
And bike shops is an essential service. And so, pretty old school advocacy. We made our case in writing and making phone calls directly to mayors and to chiefs of staff and cabinet members. In our case, really focused on transportation equity issue, and then health and wellness, right? People still need to get out and exercise, and bicycling is a wonderful way to do it. And so I don't know if you know this, but when the governor first issued his stay-at-home order, bike shops were not listed.
Right, yeah.
And bike shops let us know.
I know, but yeah.
And we were a little surprised by that, actually. And, so we sprung into action, and that was amended the following day. Now we've had street closures. Right. So we've been advocating for that. 16 miles in Denver, some of it in parks, but 8 streets have been closed for people to walk and bike. And so we've been fighting for that and try to spread that to Colorado Springs. So yeah, it hasn't been boring.
Well, let me get your response to this. So Deidre Moynihan, who runs Ride the Rockies,
yeah.
I had emailed her and just said, hey, let me know if it can help and spread any information you'd like me to talk about, whatever. And she wrote back. It was kind of an interesting response. She said, I don't know just right now, but if you can do anything, please, 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 please tell cyclists to quit riding in groups, to quit basically racing on the bike paths, to not be safe, to practice social distancing. What's your response to that?
Well, my first response is, Deidre, I'm wearing my Ride the Rockies buff right here. Look at that.
There you go.
Steve, my glasses. Yeah, I mean, she's right. I mean, we've been, I think, pretty clear on this in all of our communications. I've posted some videos imploring people to take caution, to do what's right. And I mean, I've had mixed experiences myself, and it's just my experience. I see some people making smart decisions and providing the space and wearing buffs and riding from home. And then there are people who don't. And so what I encourage people to do is, and particularly those who are like, God damn it, what can I do? People are riding right by me and elbow to elbow. I mean, you can't control other people's behavior.
Right.
And so what I can tell you is that vehicular traffic is down about 60% across Colorado. And what I have done is found some places to ride. Like I'm personally not riding on the Cherry Creek Trail, right? On a Saturday and Sunday, right? Yeah. And so I have found places to ride on the road that I haven't ridden in a while that are really light car traffic. I'll maybe start a little bit earlier than I normally do, but I can find places to ride where there's less people because I can't control what other people are doing. We'll continue to push out messaging. We may push one out on mountain biking because there's some other issues happening there, particularly in the spring. The surface is soft, and I was out at Green Mountain the other day. I just checked out, and the trail is pretty rough, right? Because people out there riding, and I get it. Like, we're cooped up, and I was on my mountain bike. I rode out from home. I was going to mountain. I'm like, hey, there's too many people to ride safely. And I looked at the trail. I'm like, God, I shouldn't be riding on that trail. So I just continued on the road. But yeah, she's right. I mean, we need to. I wish everyone would take it as seriously as,
Well, this was a take, and there was something else in her email, something about she'd been in discussions with the CSP and other authorities that I think they're getting annoyed. Like, we're now we're kind of provoking some I'm hoping we're not, but I'm wondering, maybe you can tell me, are we provoking some ill will from authorities because we're not being very careful?
I haven't heard that.
Okay.
I wouldn't be surprised. What I have heard, particularly in the Front Range, is that there is some open space in parks that are just overcrowded. And we've had conversations with municipalities about their interest in closing space to sometimes people in general, but bikes specifically, so no rolling devices. And that's mostly just because of an overcrowding issue. But I have heard more of that, like with open space and mountain biking and trailheads, because again, the trailheads are packed. We've told people, if you can't ride from home, then I'm sorry, but don't ride. Trailheads are packed, jam-packed.
Right.
And it wouldn't surprise me that it could certainly get to that point. Of course, I haven't heard that yet. The bigger issue has just been crowding.
Yeah. Well, you and I had an interesting conversation one time a while back, and we were talking about vigilant advocacy groups like the NRA that they are.
Did I go off on the NRA with you that
yes,
time?
and they are either 100% or zero. You know what I mean? Like there's no tolerance for any sort of wiggle room in laws and any sort of, as a national leadership. Now maybe inside the membership there's some wiggle room and different things, but where do you see your personal view of, how do we relate to motorists that really don't like cyclists on the road? They think the lottery pays for bike paths, and that's what we should be riding our bikes and stay off the roads. And how vigilant and where's that wiggle room for us?
So first of all, for any of your viewers who are NRA members, our conversation, while I'm not an NRA member and I don't own a gun, I was actually admiring their ability to attract membership and build a movement to make social and policy change. And it is fascinating what they can get done. And the fact that gun shops are essential services in some states.
Right.
What was your question?
Well, just where is Bicycle Colorado in terms of compromising with motorists a little bit and recognizing that maybe there are places where cyclists need to this is really not a good place to bike, or maybe you know what I'm saying? Like what's that?
Yeah, well, I mean, a couple of things. When we're riding a bike, I mean, we say this all the time. It sounds redundant, but apparently it needs to be said because bicyclists don't always follow the law. And, it's frustrating for me when, in my team, when we're fighting for certain laws and access to bikes, and then, bicyclists abuse it. And so we should always follow the law. And frankly, set a higher standard than people behind the wheel, in my opinion, right? Let's not stoop to the level of a careless driver. Let's follow the law. I think this is a really complex issue that requires multiple strategies, ranging from programs like, Trini, right? Wellington, hashtag It Could Be Me. So, PSA, public service announcements, or campaigns that reshape the image of a bicyclist. Again, in some regards, Colorado, people like me in Colorado who slap on the Lycra, and, the research shows that actually drivers look at people like you and I in Lycra and see something that's slightly less than human. Right?
I know, it's crazy.
And I'm not saying that figuratively, literally, that's how their brain is working, right? And they're not seeing a father or somebody who could be their child, right? And so, I think some campaigns around broadening people's perspective of what it means to be a bicyclist is really important. And then, I've started making the case, going on the offense, if you will. And I did this first. I was on a radio show, I don't know, a couple months ago, and it was a radio show that had an audience that really wasn't bike friendly. And I said, when someone called in, so we were taking calls, and someone called in and said, well, you don't pay anything, fees or taxes, which is wrong. Right. We do. And so there's a lot of misinformation that somehow we need to get out there. But to go on the offensive, and I truly believe this, you should be paying me to ride a bike, right? No damage to the road. I'm not contributing to congestion. I'm not polluting the air. I'm not a burden on our healthcare system. You should be paying me. We subsidize electric vehicles. Let's subsidize electric bikes, and let's subsidize me not to drive my car to work. pay me to ride. And the host is like, well, don't get all crazy. I mean, I'm like, no, I'm serious, right?
Yeah.
Like, I just don't think people think about it like you and I do, who, talk about this stuff all the time, right? And so, this comes back to our communications strategy of getting out into new audiences, connecting with new audiences, using new channels, not just 303, which I love, but how do we get into new channels and start talking about this in a way? And I think we can win some people over. There's always going to be a segment of the population who will be like, screw bicyclists, right?
Right.
I don't care.
Right.
But I do think we can get a big segment and get them to say like, yeah, like I may not ride a bike, but that person riding a bike over there, that's one less car here, right? And that's a little less pollution. And so it's not an easy thing, but we're going to continue to fight that fight. I mean, because that's where the fight's happening.
Well, let's wrap up a little bit. We try to keep these roughly around a half hour. We could go on for a day. I love all this stuff because there's so much.
I'm almost done.
Oh, so. We got more, but couple questions to finish up. Tell me why you love cycling as a person.
It just feels good. I mean,
did you race? Were you a racer? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was big on mountain biking. Actually, more of a mountain biker.
Oh, okay.
And my first race, I started racing later in life, and I was actually living in Texas and in Dallas, and I raced the Firecracker 50 in Breckenridge. And I remember calling, because I was looking in register, and they only have like a sport class and an open class, and I'm like, I need the beginner class. I've never done it. They're like, no. It's like, if you're a beginner, you don't want to race this race, particularly from Texas.
Oh, I can't imagine.
And so I did. So I went up and I did my age group, sport class, and I raced. And so it just makes me feel good. It's a great way to start a day for me. Like a day where I have to drive to work, I miss the bike. It just feels.
What's your favorite trail?
Feel good. Oh my God, probably Monarch Crest.
Oh yeah, that's a good one.
It's epic. If you can ride it from town and ride the pass,
and then go down and
then loop around and come back, as opposed to the shuttle. 401.
Yeah, those are all great.
We live in Colorado.
I know. I'm not a huge mountain biker, but I've done Monarch Crest. It's pretty awesome.
It's awesome.
It's a little bit hard. I don't love technicals, so there's a few.
Yeah, there's a couple dicey.
Yeah.
It's awesome though.
How about your favorite road ride up a mountain? What's your favorite hill to climb?
Well, I'm trying to think outside my own backyard, because everyone, I'm sure we all, ride the same stuff here on the Front Range. So when there's not traffic, if I can get up at like sunrise, I'll camp outside of Aspen and go up to Independence Pass.
Yeah, sure.
The Divide, and just see right down the valley. Yeah, bomb back down.
That's cool.
That's a really good one.
Yeah.
There's so many.
Right? We were Kenny and I were talking about that earlier.
I appreciate the questions during this like kind of tough time to like, God, I got to get out there. I can't wait.
Well, here's a couple more. We're going to start asking these of all of our guests. What's your best decision so far of 2020? Could be anything. Could be to have this beer. I don't know. Could be anything.
It's not my favorite decision, but it's been really just helping me out is yoga.
Yoga? Really?
I mean, we're getting old, man. I'm like, I have to stretch now. Like, I can't bike like I want to bike if I don't stretch, right?
Yeah, you're
and
talking.
So I was having some back issues, and I was trying everything but stretching and yoga, acupuncture and chiropractor. I'm like, God damn it. And so I'm like, I'm going to try yoga. And I was actually hoping, like, I hope this doesn't work, because then I'm going to have to find time in my life to do yoga. And it's been amazing.
Really? Do you do it at home now?
Yeah, I used to go to a studio, but I embarrassed myself. I fell asleep during that corpse pose. Like, it was at the beginning. It was like a 6 a.m. class.
Yeah.
And I'm laying there, and all of a sudden, you catch yourself snoring. I was like 20 minutes into the class. I'm laying there.
Nobody came over to say, wait.
No. They're like,
you're not doing a lunge?
You were so peaceful. But I needed more, like, there's a lot of other extracurricular activity in that studio. It's a great studio. But I just do it at home. I get it in. Yeah. And it's helped. I mean, I think it helps me smoother pedal strokes, more balanced. And
My brother said the same thing, actually. So.
I've been at it. I mean, it's pretty.
All right.
Do some down dogs.
Sooner or later, I'm going to give in. I just see it. I just feel it. How about your favorite place in the world? If someone said, here's a free ticket, where do you want to go?
My God, there's so many. Well, since I'm Italian, I got to stay close to my heritage and say like the Amalfi Coast, Cinque Terre, the coast of Italy.
Yeah.
A lot of white wine and pesto, pasta, bread.
Yep.
And good bike riding too.
Right? Yeah, I'd love to.
Really good bike riding
there.
out there.
I'd love to.
Yeah, it's outstanding.
Right.
Narrow streets,
Yeah.
It's pretty cool.
All right. Well, that's good. Well, hey, thanks for being a guest on Garage Talks. It was awesome to see
Virtual
you.
handshake, yeah.
And thanks for just sitting down, having a beer, and hanging out, and telling us a little bit about Bicycle Colorado and yourself. And it was fun. And maybe we'll reconvene some point later on and just see how some of this shakes out and go from there.
Anytime. It was a blast. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Yeah.